So we have seen now the core issues surrounding Naxalism. We saw what are the various factors that have contributed to Naxalism. And our discussion was predominantly revolving around from the viewpoint of tribals, like why will tribals feel bad? But now think from the perspective of an IAS officer, from an IPS officer, from the perspective of a CRPF commandant, from the perspective of a small ordinary policeman or an ordinary ranking Jawan who has to deal with Naxalism. It is not at all easy. And as rightfully said by D. Vijay Kumar IPS, the senior security advisor to the Home Ministry, security and development should go like the left and right leg of the human body. That is, when you bring in security, you have to bring in development. And when you bring in development, you should ensure security, so on and so forth. So now we are going to see a list of strategies that were adopted to counter left-wing extremism. And here goes. Government of India has adopted a multi-pronged approach to counter Maoism or left-wing extremism. And what do you mean by development here? To deliver governance and bridge the deficit. Say, for example, road connectivity project for left-wing extremism affected areas, left-wing extremism mobile tower project, schools and hospitals. The center has been building roads in the Naxal region aggressively, but the challenges are endless. Why the challenges are endless? Because it doesn't take much effort to destroy it. All that it requires is an improved explosive device to destroy the road. So let us say today the tar is laid out, today the foundation is laid out, and tomorrow it will get destroyed. Tomorrow, even before the tar would have got dried up, blast would have taken place. So this is where we have an issue. We as officers should have an issue with this because yes, historic injustice, we are not denying it. Poor rehabilitation schemes, we are not denying it. But when the government is trying to rectify the errors of the past, you cannot take the law into your own hands, no matter what the reason is. You can go to the court if you're not satisfied with the developmental initiative, because that is the democratic process. And here what is happening is the whole process itself is being questioned. Clear? Moving on. Other strategies, let us say security. Intelligence-based counter-insurgency operation, COIN operations. Now let me tell you, when it comes to such acronyms, you are supposed to use those acronyms which are allowed on a standard basis. And if you want to use it further in your answer, once if you are given the expansion and if you give COIN, in the subsequent part of your answer, you can use directly COIN. Every now and then you need not elaborate it. Example, clash between India's security forces and the Maoist insurgents at the Sukma-Bijapur border region in the state of Chhattisgarh, 3rd April 8, 2021. So this again, what are we understanding here? Whenever the state is actually doing better and better work in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of development, in terms of, overall investment in the social infrastructure, that is when such attacks happen. Puts the entire developmental process into setback, and then on top of it, what does it do? The whole peace process that was being built on in the region, even that comes into question here. Clear? So that is the reason why, like I told you initially, security and development should go hand in glove. We cannot actually take anything for granted here. Moving on. The developmental strategies to counter left-wing extremism. The integrated action plan by Ministry of Home Affairs, because internal security ultimately is the domain of Ministry of Home Affairs. Security related expenditure scheme. Security related expenditure scheme. From the word itself, it is very clear. That is the expenditure made by the security forces. For that, there is a particular scheme. What scheme it is? This scheme is being implemented as a sub-scheme of the umbrella scheme modernization of police forces. Under the security-related expenditure scheme, central government reimburses the state governments 10 states, 70 districts. Reimburses what? Reimburses for the expenditure incurred. It could be for fuel, it could be for some intelligence input, etc. Now, what is the purpose here? See, one must understand any internal security threat, how to counter it. Yes, we can get all the gadgets, we can get all the sophisticated weapons, all the technology out there, everything we can bring in. But the fact of the matter goes, they are all of no use until and unless you get ground level intelligence. And intelligence is not cheap. You will have to pay for it. Now, if you keep paying it out of your pocket every now and then what happens? Pretty soon, you are going to run out of your salary. That is one reason. Plus, again, you will have to go and conduct raid. You will have to go and conduct search and seizure operations. You will have to do surprise checks, surprise inspections. For all this, you need what? You need money for it. And that is where this scheme comes into picture, which is security related expenditure scheme. Moving on. So, like I told you, the training and operational needs of security forces gets taken care of. Ex gratia payment to the family of civilians or security forces killed or injured in left-wing extremism violence. Compensation to left-wing extremist cadres who surrendered in accordance with the surrender policy. So these are some of the other strategies involved. Like I told you, if you actually surrender an AK-47 rifle or any other assault rifle or small weapons, all of this will come under the package. If it comes under the package, you will get certain amount of money and your child will get admission in school. All these are available. In addition to this, the ex gratia payment to the family of civilians or security forces killed. A couple of years ago, if you remember, when an IAS officer was being kidnapped, in the process of his kidnap, the gunman of the IAS officer had to lay down his life. Sadly, the information itself, the family of the gunman received through media, not through any official sources. So these are some things, where governance has to have more of a humane approach, not just for the left-wing extremists, but to the security forces also. Because ultimately, the security forces who are there protecting the IAS officer or protecting the developmental projects, they are there because they are driven by patriotism. They are thinking this, it is their national duty. So the least that we can do from our side is what? Give them their due respect and respect them at least when they have laid down their life. These are minimalistic things which we can do for them. Moving on. Rehabilitation policy of the concerned state government, community policing, security related infrastructure for village defense committees and publicity materials. So community policing. What do you mean by community policing? Like I told you, no security agency in the world can function in total isolation. You cannot function that way. For that, you actually need what? You need information. You need information. Information will come from where? From the public. So this has to come. And from the security agency, the necessary support should go back to the public. Only when the psychological barrier between the public and the security agencies are removed, only then we will have what? We will have good information flowing in. Only then security agencies will have a high success rate. This is how it goes. Because ultimately, if you take any city to the bottom belly of the city, where all the crimes takes place, all bad things happens, if you actually go and ask the bottom dwelling criminals there, they will know who is doing what. They will exactly have all the details. But it is up to the police force or the force in that particular region to build trust so that they get this intelligence information and they can act on it. Clear? Moving on. Continuing further with development strategies to counter left-wing extremism. In that, disposal of the committee headed by the district collector, consisting of the superintendent of police of the district and the district forest officer. Now you have three officers from three very important services coming together and coming under a particular committee. Why? Because when it comes to the collector, we are talking about what? A socio-economic perspective, a developmental perspective, both in terms of social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. When you talk about the superintendent of police there, we are talking about what? We are talking about the security aspect of it. When you are talking about the forest service officer, he's the one who will give information with regard to the terrain, the life of the tribal people there, the type of flora and fauna there, all such details. And if you combine all these information, only then you can have what? You can have solutions to handle left-wing extremism. Scheme of fortified police stations. What do you mean by the word fortified? Fortified, when we say it is secured. See, now automatically it is a question from where Maoists are getting all the weapons. Where are they getting all the weapons from? So here we must understand one thing. Yes, they first of all manufacture it locally. They get it manufactured locally in the forest, or they go and get it manufactured in some small industrial units. They get it manufactured there. They use those actually to what? Attack police stations. And from there they capture the arms and ammunition. This is the usual strategy that they adopt. So what ends up happening here is the weapons which we have given to our soldiers, our Jawans, our cops, that ends up in the hands of the Maoists. And the ironical part is they end up getting killed by the very bullets that is supposed to save them. Got the idea? That is why you have to secure the police stations much in what? In detail. So, Ministry had sanctioned the construction of 400 fortified police stations in 10 left-wing extremism affected states. So, obviously, it is not all the police stations. You will be basically targeting all those districts where the scourge or the menace of left-wing extremism is on the higher level. Clear? Moving on. So, the next in list is the Civic Action Program. Under modernization of police forces to bridge the gaps between security forces and local people. So the civic action program here basically means to change the image of the police. Because see, generally when we talk about cops, what it is, they are gun-trotting, menacing, they'll be having all these black marks on their face or on their body, etc. as part of camouflage, so as to mingle with the terrain, with the geography, for all that. But the ultimate perception, what does it lead to? They are looking very dangerous. They are inhumane. They are barbaric. That is the perception the tribal people has. And also the fear mongering that would have been spread by Maoism or left-wing extremists. But instead, what you do here, any medical needs are there, especially in the tribal areas. Basic level treatment, who can do? Police officers as well as Central Armed Police Force can do. When it comes to distribution of ration, when it comes to rehabilitation in times of disaster, for all of that, what is the advantage? The image of the police force, the image of the security agencies, that changes. The humane side of the security agencies are exposed. Getting the idea? So that way, what happens? The rapport is built up. Whatever stories or whatever rumors are spread about the security agencies, that gets killed then and there. Clear? Media plan. Activities like tribal youth exchange programs organized by radio jingles, documentaries, pamphlets, etc. are being conducted. So what is the purpose of all this? See, when you talk about radio jingles or tribal youth exchange program, you are engaging the youth, especially the tribal youth. Why? Because like I have told you many times, unemployed youth are automatic fodder for extremist movements. And when you look into this, radio jingles, documentaries, pamphlets, you are actually banking on what? The creative side of the tribal people, whereby which they are, the mindset itself, psychologically we can say what? We are taking into a non-violent route. So even if they want to express something, they can express it through documentaries, pamphlets, etc. They need not actually take weapons for it. Getting the picture here? So whole process or idea is what? You be the voice of dissent. You criticize the government, but do it through proper channel. Getting the picture? Moving on. So the effective implementation of PESA Act, Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, the 5th and 6th schedule provisions which are there in the constitution, and you are seeing to it that it gets implemented according to what is mentioned in the constitution, and the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006. Basically the purpose of these are it will basically give power to what? Gram Sabha, power to the Panchayat, power to the tribal people. So their rights are given paramount importance compared to any development that we talk about. That is, their consent is important there. Getting the idea? A classic example for this is Vedanta, how the company Vedanta was asked to leave Niyamgiri Hills simply because the Gram Sabha said no, did not approve the mining operations of Vedanta in Niyamgiri Hills. So that is the idea here, because ultimately if mining would have happened there, yes, it would have given employment to a lot of people, it would have contributed to the GDP, it would have contributed to the overall economic growth of the region, but the environmental damage, the damage to the lifestyle and the socio-cultural life of the tribals would have been paramount, inadvertently leading to what? Spread of extremism. Clear? Funds are provided to Central Armed Police Forces like the Central Reserve Police Force, Border Security Force, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, and Sahastra Seema Bal. For what purpose? For conducting welfare activities in their deployment areas in left-wing affected states. So this is the idea here. So as you can clearly see, more or less we are writing everything point by point. And these are the suggested solutions that you will put up even in your conclusion part of your answer. Because so far when we look into the questions of left-wing extremism, the questions have largely been on, okay, how it has evolved, what is the current scenario, etc. But then you have to tell what are the measures taken by the government, both in terms of security and in terms of development. You can give examples of state, you can give examples of central programs also. Clear? So this is the strategy. Whatever strategy you are finding here, the pattern in which we have covered the syllabus here, that is the same pattern that you will maintain even for your answers. Clear? Moving on. Now, let us see PESA and FRA little in detail. So if you see PESA 1996, that is the year of implementation, and FRA 2006 as counter-Naxal strategy. In that, PESA empowered the Gram Sabhas. Empowered as in gave more powers to the Gram Sabhas. How? Prevented land alienation. That is, if at all forest land had to be diverted for non-forest purposes, consent from Gram Sabha was important. Restoration of unlawfully alienated land. So unlawfully alienated land which has been diverted unlawfully, that has to be what? Restored back to its pristine condition. Absolute ownership over minor forest produce. During the days of the British, there was a concept called as reserve forest, which prevented the tribals from actually collecting the minor forest produce from reserve forest. So that historical error itself we have rectified post-independence, but still then there are certain restrictions on the tribal people from venturing out into forest, especially near sensitive areas, etc. Consultation over licenses of mining and mineral exploration. Consultation with whom? With the Gram Sabhas again. So you must understand here the power equation, what is happening here. A very huge, multinational company sending in their representatives, and they have to talk and reach an amicable settlement with whom? With the tribal people. Getting the idea? So literally the suited, decked up officers from the company are dealing with what? The rightful owners of this land, the tribals. That is actually what you call democracy. Completely equity, complete equality. It is not about have and have nots there. It is about discussing out a common issue on equal footing, irrespective of what is your socio-economic status. Clear? Moving on. So, now we saw PESA briefly. Let us see FRA. Made the Forest Department one of the parties involved with no decision making or veto powers at the district and subdivision levels. So, FRA made what? Forest Department one of the parties involved with no decision making or veto power. That means they don't have any say. Who has the say? It is the Gram Sabha again. Gram Sabha became the important factor there. FRA and PESA have empowered the tribals directly and have been a contributory factor in causing attrition in Naxal ranks. That is, people leaving Naxalism and joining national development. Clear, people? The idea behind drawing this is at the drop of a hat, you should be able to draw the Indian map. It didn't take me at what? Not even a minute. So the same way, you should also start practicing this. So the Naxal areas, when we talk about, this is the area, correct? So from that area, Naxalism has reduced because of PESA 1996 and FRA 2006. Even if one line you write showing this marking here, your job is done. Anybody will understand which region we are talking about here. Clear, people? Moving on. So in terms of development, we saw strategies. Constitutionally, what guarantees provided also we saw. Legislature wise, from the side of the legislature, laws were implemented, PESA and FRA. But sometimes even this is not enough. Like I told you, some people, they are ready for dialogue. Some people, they are simply not ready for dialogue. Both are fine. But some people has the thought process that only bullet is the solution. Then for them, what do? We will have to give the answer in the language that they understand. Operation Green Hunt. It was started in 2009-10 and it was a massive deployment of security forces in the Naxal affected areas. Massive deployment. Because in 2009-10, in those years especially, we were being overwhelmed by strength of Naxal forces. Too many people into Naxalism. So that is when we had to bring in what? We had to bring in the forces also, because ultimately, like I tell you again and again, security and development should go hand in hand. Clear? So, acts being passed, developmental strategies, schemes to compensate for the expenditure. Now, when we look into the latest set of schemes, most of them have what? An indirect effect on left-wing extremism. It is not directly targeting it. Directly, we are thinking about what? A holistic development of the district or the region, which will actually prove counterproductive for Naxalism. Classic example for this would be the Aspirational District Program. Aspirational District Program launched in 2018. It aims to rapidly transform the districts that have shown relatively lesser progress in key social areas. Because ultimately the idea is what? Once the basic HDI factors improves, it will automatically lead to what? It will automatically lead to a decline in Naxalism. Once you focus on the economic development also, then what will it lead to? It will lead to a decline in left-wing extremism. So together, what are we talking about here? Social and economic development. So that the key HDI factors will improve. That is the idea. And when key HDI factors improves, when people have better alternate opportunities for employment, why will they go and join Naxalism? That is the idea. So indirectly, how schemes can actually help in what? Help in reducing Naxalism. Clear, people? Moving on. So directly targeting the development of the region, seeing to it that the constitutionally guaranteed provisions are being implemented, passing acts to exclusively deal with what? Tribal development, then bringing in those schemes which will help it indirectly dealing with the problem of left-wing extremism, seeing to it that the security forces are in good number in the left-wing extremism areas, so that the majority that we talk about is the security forces and the minority is the left-wing extremists. But all of this is fine. This is the age of 21st century. So how do we make these people aware that there is something called as government of India? There is a country, an idea called India. So that is where they should be made aware. How to make them aware? In this age and in this generation, the best solution for that is what? Mobile connectivity and its associated infrastructure. And how do we build that? By using Universal Service Obligation Fund, which will be used in the left-wing extremist affected areas to improve mobile connectivity and infrastructure. Getting the picture? Because the idea here is they should know that there is a government of India which can take care of their needs, not some kangaroo court run by Maoists or Naxals. That is the idea there. Clear? Let us see some more schemes now. So, Roshni scheme. Now, Roshni scheme, if you see, it is a skill development program for tribals in left-wing extremism affected areas. Compensation is given to victims and affected families. Surrender, rehabilitation and mainstreaming policies are also part of this. So the ultimate idea is what here? Ultimate idea is to see to it that the tribals are provided with alternate means of employment. Just like how most of the young population in the country, the youthful population in the country apply for a government job, thinking that it will give a secure job till 50, 60 years. Some of the people in tribals unfortunately go and join Naxalism, not because they are driven by ideology, not because the government did any injustice to them, not because they are totally dissatisfied with the government, nothing. It is a classic case of poverty. Nothing else is available, so went and took it up. So that is why we have to provide them with what? We have to provide them with skills to deal with what? Naxalism. So that they don't go and join it, but instead with the skills that they have, they can encash it or get employment elsewhere. Clear? So Roshni will provide the skills. But after providing the skill, let us say the tribal citizen makes a product. Now, how do you sell the product? How do you market the product? How do you see to it that the product fetches the right price? And that is where TriFed comes into play. TriFed is Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation of India, institutionalizing the trade of minor forest produce and surplus agricultural produce collected or cultivated by tribes. Minor forest produce, surplus agricultural produce collected or cultivated. Supports the formation of self-help groups and imparts training. Training, again, the purpose is what? To develop skills. Different tribes of the country will be, helped in this process, whereby which they can grow socially and economically. And very recently, TriFed has collaborated with Amazon. Why? Amazon will provide the platform for actually selling the products produced by the tribals. And this platform will be obviously used by what? The users of Amazon are whom? Mostly the urban population. So that way what happens is we are actually bringing the tribal products out into the forefront, whereby which increased return will go to whom? Will go to the tribal people. Getting the idea? Without any middlemen. So this is the advantage. Clear? Now let us move on to developmental schemes to deal with left-wing extremism or to help in the upliftment of tribal population. So here we see first GEET. GIS enabled entitlement tracking system. Now remember, I have already told you, out of every 1 rupee that is supposed to be going to the poor, only 15 paise reaches the poor person. Whereas 85% goes into what? Goes into corruption. Goes into corruption. So this has to be stopped. So GEAT, again, if you see, it's a classic collaboration between an international agency like United Nations Development Program and the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, where it creates awareness and facilitates connecting beneficiaries with their eligible social entitlement. It allows the district administrators and scheme implementing agencies to track and review their outreach and response. That is it. Basically, it will track the last beneficiary in the list and will find out whether or not they have received the entitlement due to them. So this last minute check, when it is being done, automatically what happens? Development goes where it is due. Entitlement goes where it is due. It is the rightful beneficiaries who are getting the benefit. Clear? So this is the way you can ensure what? You can ensure a corruption-free entitlement is going to the rightful beneficiary. All of this can be what? Ensured. Clear? So the whole concept is what? A holistic development. Moving on. With GEAT we saw it was a collaboration between an international agency like UNDP with Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Moving on now, we have GOAL. So GOAL is what? A collaboration between a private player, an international private player with the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Let us see that in detail. GOAL is Going Online as Leaders, launched by Facebook in partnership with Ministry of Tribal Affairs in the year 2020, which is what? Digitally skill and empower 5,000 youth from tribal communities over the next 5 years. Digitally enabling them. Why digitally enabling them? See, we are in the cusp of the 4th industrial revolution, right? Artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, deep learning, all this will come under that. So to cater to this huge revolution, the demand that is going to be generated in the future with regard to the digital world is going to be humongous. And metaverse, with the evolution of metaverse, etc., this is just going to explode into a huge economy. And that will lead to a creation of huge demand. So it will be better what right now itself if we start training the tribal youth for it, so that, like I told you earlier, we can have an alternative for them to what? For them to work, rather than going and joining the ranks of Naxals. Clear? Moving on. So number 1 is GEAT, UNDP, MOTA. Number 2 is GOAL, Facebook, MOTA. Number 3 is Swasthya portal. So what is Swasthya portal? What does it cover? National Tribal Health Portal as a one-stop solution that aims to facilitate exchange of ideas, information and learnings among the stakeholders. It leading to evidence-based and data-driven decision making. It is a tribal health portal. See, exclusively a portal for health for the tribals. Why? India has the rather notorious distinction of what? Notorious distinction of having one of the highest out of the pocket expenditure. Out of the pocket expenditure for health. And this actually makes what? Health sector inaccessible to the tribal population. So we need to have effective solutions for what? Effectively handling all those lacunae, all those deficiencies with regard to the health of the tribal people in the country. For that you have Swasthya. So GEAT, GOAL, Swasthya. Alright? Moving on. So after GEAT, GOAL and Swasthya, next in line is 1000 Spring Initiative. Now what is the 1000 Spring Initiative? Under whose collaboration does it come? It comes under the collaboration of Ministry of Tribal Affairs and United Nations Development Program. As usual, MOTA plus UNDP. It demonstrated a localized innovative solution by harnessing the potential of perennial springs to meet the water needs of remote tribal communities. To meet the water needs. What is the purpose here? To ensure adequate water supplies, because more often than not, the tribals actually die because of lack of access to clean drinking water. So the potential, when we say we are going to harness it, don't think of it as a negative connotation. Here the idea is what? To utilize it effectively with a sustainable mindset. That is the purpose here. Clear? So overall, if you see Geet, all right, what does it do? Entitlement, money required comes to you. Number 2, goal, where online training is given. Number 3, Swasthya, your health is ensured. Number 4 is water. So if you see overall what it is, money, skill, health, drinking water. So when it comes to Geet, it is what? An international agency like UNDP with Ministry of Tribal Affairs. When it comes to goal, it is an international private agency, an MNC with Ministry of Tribal Affairs. When it comes to Swasthya portal, it is our own indigenous portal to maintain what? A common platform for evidence-based research and decision making with regard to tribal health. And finally, we have what? Thousand Spring Initiative, which is again an international collaboration between UNDP and Ministry of Tribal Affairs, where the purpose is what? To harness the potential of perennial springs. Clear with this much?